Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. Rafa Nadal has won his 21st Grand Slam. You know that already. We talked about that plenty. Does it mean he will be the GOAT? Let me know in the comments below. We can do a separate video on that topic because it's never ending, but remains fascinating. Today I want to talk about his string setup, and the racket, as you know, is the Aero Pro Drive Original, painted to look like this, the Mallorca color inspired Pure Aero. But the Aero Pro Drive Original, the first edition of the Aero Pro Drive, which had a little bit of a tighter string bed, and is the racket he's still using. I mean, for the pros to change rackets, it's a huge thing, so it's not always that the rackets are better, it's more that they're used to them, and muscle memory and these things in tennis, when you're hitting a million shots, it's very important. But he's been using RPM Blast for the last 10 or so years. He used to play with Duralast. Now he's been using RPM Blast, and he's been using the thick gauge RPM Blast. And as you might already be familiar with, the strings come in different gauges, different thicknesses. And when you have a thinner gauge, you usually have more comfort, more power, but less durability and control. So it's a trade-off the players have to do depending on the tension they string and so on. If they want to have a really thick gauge for ultimate durability and control, or they want to have a thinner gauge for a bit more comfort and power, potentially more spin potential. I mean, that's something you can debate, but the thinner strings will move more and be a little bit more lively overall. But he's been using the 1.35 gauge of the RPM Blast, and that's a really thick string. Very few players use that kind of thick string, and it makes sense for Rafa. He's playing with huge amounts of topspin and really hitting the ball with this trajectory over and over again, massive racket head speed. He's been leading the RPM ratings for a long time. So it makes sense that he's bending the strings a lot. They're not going to last a long time if he's playing with something thinner. But for this Australian Open, and perhaps a little bit before, he's been using a 1.30 gauge, so a slightly thinner string, more a normal thickness on the market, still a durable thickness. Now that strings go down from like 1.05, there are strings that are that thin, that's rare. But you see 1.10, 1.15, 1.20, 1.25. So 1.20 and 1.25 are the most common thicknesses in strings. So 1.30 is more for you who really bend the string, put a lot of strain on it, and you really value durability. You hit big, you maybe have a more open pattern, while the 125 is a little bit more versatile. And now you're also seeing a more popular trend in the 1.20, and for some also the 1.15, that they think they might get more feel and a little bit more power, comfort from the thinner gauge. So even players that are not, super advanced can play with Polis if they use the right tension and the right thickness. What does Rafa want to get going down to 130? He wants to get a little bit livelier feel, a little bit more free power. He wants to make sure he gets a bit more for free. It's something you're seeing from all the pros. Andy Murray going up to a bigger head size. Hope to get a little bit more from the racket. Denis Shapovalov playing with the ISO 98 instead of the V-Chord 95, going for a bit more power, more forgiveness. Andrei Rublev went from his 6'1" 95. He tried the Gravity Pro and started playing with that one in a pro stock, his specs and so on. But you see that trend over and over. They want to get more from their equipment. I mean, Fed did that when he went from the Pro Staff 90 to the Pro Staff 97, the autograph version they made for him. So all these smaller tweaks, reducing tension, going down in thickness of the string, going up in head size, all these things will really get you a bit more for free. Obviously the control factor will be reduced, you will have less control, but the margins in tennis are so small these days. Players hit with big spin, they move better, they have better physique. So I think players are looking for whatever they can get from the racket. So I'm trying to keep up with all these updates, and I will let you know as soon as I find out. Thanks for you who write on Tennis Nerd, the Facebook group, where this was posted as well, or through Instagram messages that I get a lot of these insider info. So big thanks for that. If you really want to dive into this stuff, you can check out Tennis Warehouse forums where you might find a lot of information, not all of it correct, and a lot of crazy discussions, but it's definitely a place for discussion, and there's some smart people on those forums that know a lot. If you want to have a little bit more for free from your racket, you can go down in tension, but you can also reduce the thickness of the string. So that's what Rafa did, and seemed to work well in the Australian Open. Definitely not the string, it's all up here, but still, it's an interesting change that was worth discussing. If you like this stuff, if you like the work I do, please check out my other stuff on the YouTube channel and on tennisnerd.net. Please also subscribe to the channel. Okay, thanks everyone, have a nice day now, and don't forget to play some tennis.